What if everything you know is wrong?
Have you ever felt like you're parenting two completely different kids, but they're both living in the same body? Yeah, you're not alone. Today, we're going to demystify the fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes really frustrating science of how a child's brain actually grows. So let's dive in. Here it is, the classic parenting puzzle, right? One minute, your kid has the laser focus of an engineer building this incredible Lego tower, and the very next minute, they have absolutely zero impulse control when it comes to waiting for a cookie. This isn't a character flaw, I promise. It's actually a feature of their developing brain, and we're about to see exactly why that is. So I want you to meet the main character in our story today, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC for short. Just think of it as the brain's CEO. It sits right behind your forehead, and it's in charge of all those high-level executive functions. You know, stopping an impulse, making a smart plan, handling big feelings. But here's the kicker. It's the very last part of the brain to get fully built. We're talking a construction project that doesn't wrap up until our mid-20s.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The foundation years, from when they're born up to about age 8, are just this period of explosive brain growth. This is where all the essential wiring for that future CEO gets laid down.
This right here is the core principle of early brain development. You could think of it as practice makes pathways. First, the brain just goes wild building connections. That's synaptogenesis. It's like building roads to every single possible destination. But then, the brain gets smart and efficient. Through a process called synaptic pruning, it strengthens the roads that get used a lot and, well, it demolishes the ones that don't. It is the ultimate use it or lose it system. And that's exactly why consistent routines and lots of practice are so incredibly important in these early years.
So this brings us to something super practical, attention span. I mean, just look at these numbers. If you've got a 2-year-old, a typical attention span is just 4 to 6 minutes. That's it. That's totally normal. Even by the time they're 8, we're only looking at about 16 to 24 minutes. Just keeping these benchmarks in mind can save us so much frustration and help us set way more realistic expectations for things like homework or chores or, well, pretty much anything that requires focus. Of course, modern life throws a few curveballs into this whole process. Experts are increasingly warning that too much screen time can actually interfere with the very wiring we were just talking about. It can weaken these things called white matter pathways. Think of those as the brain's super-fast information highways. And when those highways are slower or less developed, it can directly impact things like language and literacy skills. And this number really puts that warning into perspective. 40%. 40% of 2-year-olds, an age where their attention span is just a handful of minutes long, already have their own tablet. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a really stark statistic that shows this constant tension between our very digital world and the biological needs of a brain that's still under construction. Okay, let's shift gears now and fast forward to the teenage years. From around age 8 all the way to 25, the brain is undergoing this massive, messy, and incredible renovation. And maybe the best way to picture it is to think of a high-performance sports car, a powerful engine with a braking system that's still being installed. So this is the crucial mismatch that explains so much. On one side, you have the limbic system. This is the brain's emotional center, the reward-seeking part. It's the gas pedal. It matures early, and it is super sensitive to things like pleasure, social rewards, and what friends think. Then, on the other side, you have our friend the prefrontal cortex, the CEO, which is the brake pedal. It's in charge of good judgment and impulse control, but it matures last. So for most of their adolescence, they're running around with a super-sensitive gas pedal and some pretty unreliable brakes. So what does that mismatch actually look like in the real world? Well, it looks a whole lot like a typical teenager, doesn't it? You get these intense, sometimes overwhelming emotions. You see this huge response to rewards and a big increase in risk-taking. That whole engine before brakes setup is why they're so much more influenced by their peers and why it's so hard for them to think about long-term consequences, even when they intellectually know better. When you zoom out and look at it like this, it's so clear the brain development is a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, from the basic sensory wiring of infancy all the way to the major remodeling of the teenage years, every single stage builds on the one that came before. The ultimate goal is to get that powerful emotional system and that thoughtful CEO brain working together as a seamless team, but that process takes the better part of 25 years.
Okay, so understanding the why behind their behavior is great, but you're probably asking, what can I actually do about it? Well, the great news is that we are not just helpless bystanders in this process. There are simple, really practical things we can do every single day to help our kids build a stronger, more connected brain. You know, simple, old-school, screen-free games are fantastic brain builders. Think about it. A game like Simon Says or Red Light, Green Light is basically a boot camp for impulse control. Puzzles and building with blocks? That's practice for planning and problem solving. And Pretend Play is an absolute powerhouse for developing flexible thinking and social skills. These aren't just ways to pass the time, they're valuable workouts for that developing PFC.
And you know what? Our words are incredibly powerful tools too. Simple, predictable phrases can strengthen those executive functions right in the moment. Using "first we do homework, then we watch a show" teaches delayed gratification. Offering a simple choice, do you want the red cup or the blue cup, builds their decision-making muscles. And modeling how to pause and breathe when things get heated, you're literally lending your child your own calm prefrontal cortex until theirs gets a little bit stronger.
Finally, we cannot forget the environment their brain is growing in. These three things are absolutely non-negotiable for healthy development. First, sleep. And get this, teens need a whopping 9 to 10 hours a night. Second, daily physical movement and play. And third, predictable routines. These aren't just nice-to-haves. They are the fundamental bedrock that supports all of that complex construction going on inside their heads.
So as we start to wrap this up, I want to focus on the single most important message to take away from all of this incredible science.
The brain's amazing ability to change and adapt is called neuroplasticity, and honestly, it is our greatest source of hope. Development is not set in stone. Even for a kid who's had a really rocky start or who struggles with focus, their brain has this incredible capacity to recover, to rewire itself, and to build stronger pathways when they have the right support and the right environment. It's never too late.
Which really just leaves us with one last thought to chew on. In a world that is jam-packed with educational apps and brain-training games, what if the most powerful tool we have for building our children's brains isn't something we can buy? What if it's something much simpler? What if it's just our own patience? Our understanding of this long, sometimes messy, and truly incredible marathon of development.
Understanding begins with why.